Welcome to the Get Real Sisters podcast. We're sisters, each other's biggest supporter and confidant. We keep it real with each other, just like we're going to keep it real with you, with discussions about life, the good, the bad, and in between. We're here to grow and get real. So don't forget to subscribe and share. Let's go.
What up? What up?
Hey, what's going on?
Good morning to you. Good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you are watching this. And here with us in the room, it's your girls from the Get Real Sisters podcast. As you know, I'm Jazz.
And I'm Shanice.
Welcome into our episode 3. We are super excited to dive right into it. Actually into a topic that Shanice and I have been, I would like to say struggling with, but also talking and working through for quite some time, and I'm sure you can relate. What is that topic? Don't fret, here we are. Boundaries. Okay. It is something that one, all of us need to have, but oddly enough, we struggle with, even though we know it's good for us to have. So we definitely want to kind of tap into this, share naturally, right? Our experiences, what we're struggling with, but also some tips that, are working or might not be working that, we're still exploring
Or
right
that we're not following.
right. So yeah, let's get it cracking. Now,
And just a disclaimer, throw our
yep, thank
disclaimer
you.
in here early. We are not licensed professionals, so nothing that we are sharing or saying could ever take place of, talking to a doctor or a therapist. So if you need that help, definitely get that help. This is literally just off of the information that we've read, picked up along the way, or just our own personal opinions and thoughts. And if you love it, let us know, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. But yeah, we're not, at least yet, we're not the licensed professionals. Disclaimer will change if that ever changes.
Come zoom. Amazing. So I wanted to start with an article, and you guys will hear throughout our podcast, right? We're going to reference, right? One, knowledge is everything, and so getting out there to read, to gain that wisdom and better understandings. We're going to reference articles. We're going to reference podcasts. I highly recommend you kind of dig deep to gain your own perspective and understanding as well. So one article, we'll link it in the bio, of course, where they define boundaries. And I wanted to read that to you guys. The article itself is 8 questions and answers about boundaries on buildingyourspace.com. The definition and the way they define boundaries was: boundaries is a basic guideline you set to establish how you would like others to treat you. Defining what behaviors you are willing or not to accept, and determine how you respond when someone crosses those limits. To be honest, I think it's a little wordy, but I think short and sweet is boundaries is simply what you set in your life to let people know what you're willing to accept or not, right? Shanice, do you have like in your own kind of word, like, do you want to agree with the way that they define it, or in your own words how you would define boundaries?
I mean, yeah, I agree with that, but those boundaries are, like you said, it is like longer. But for me in general, boundaries are setting the expectation of how you want to be treated.
Yeah.
Because people aren't, I think we also live in a world of assumption. People just assume how to treat people, and a lot of times that's based on how they grew up, how they were raised, what type of demographic they come from. All of that can alter how people think others should be treated, or how they decide to treat people, whether they know any different. But and my boundaries can be different than your boundaries. So yeah, it's generally how you, whatever expectation you personally have for yourself for the way you want others to treat you.
Yeah. I think, like, the first question that definitely comes to my mind, or and I'm sure to others, right, that may be struggling with it or starting to work through this process of, one, how do I even know? How do I know that I need to establish boundaries? What's your thoughts on that?
I think really how you really end up knowing is when people cross you in a
Mm-hmm.
way that makes you feel uncomfortable, makes you mad, makes you sad, like feeling disrespected. So any action, behavior, or words that they're using towards you that make you feel inadequate in any kind of sense, any type of negative emotion, that's when, oh, hey, I don't like this. This doesn't make me feel good. So that is essentially my trigger for feeling like you crossed my boundary. So even if you never really set these real boundaries or wrote them down or figured out what your boundaries are, your mind and your body definitely knows what they are
Mm-hmm.
because you wouldn't feel any kind of way if that was the case, in my opinion.
Right, right. I couldn't agree more. I think it's quite simply is that it's your feelings and emotions. Feelings and emotions. You have to really tap into that. And when something doesn't feel good in your spirit, right, you're in the moment and you're like, or um, and I know we're probably going to dive into like our examples and stuff like that. I recall, working through my self-love journey. Um, you and I would have countless conversations of me just like going out all the time, right? And being like, dang, Dad, like again. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to, but, and you're like, okay. And, again, working through the journey, it took me a while. And I think sometimes I even backtrack. I'm like, even sometimes now I could feel it creeping back up. But to say is that there's moments where I'm like, if someone reaches out and is like, hey, Jazz, like, you want to go X place, you want to go out to eat? That's a bad example because I'm gonna say yes to that. But you know what I'm saying? Like you want to go to this party or whatever, and because in my mind I'm like, oh, they're reaching out, they must want me to go. I don't want to let them down. I'm just gonna say yes. But in my spirit, in this moment, I don't really want to go. That's
Mm,
when I was like, nope, I gotta set these boundaries, right? Just because like I know my personality, I don't want to miss anything. I want to be in the know. That's why I could see where I was not setting those
mhm.
healthy boundaries and people. I don't think and I don't think sometimes I was going to say I don't think people intentionally cross your boundaries, right? One, if they don't know, they're doing it, they have no idea, even though sometimes they may know your boundary and they're like, well, let me see, are these
Right.
strong boundaries in place?
Right, because
Check.
honestly, people only like if they know your boundary, they're only going to cross it
Yep.
if they believe like they can get away with it. Like,
Right.
what are you gonna do? I've crossed it already like 8 times. You're you said even if you told them, wrote it on a piece of paper and showed them whatever the case, like
Mm-hmm.
if you allow someone to continue to repetitively treat you in a way that you don't like, then you're not sticking to those boundaries, even if you know what they are, or you don't even have to necessarily know, but you're still putting up with it. So yeah, I definitely I do think that you got better with the no if you don't want to go. I think I also have the same thing though. Like I feel like I'm probably more advanced in saying the no's and everything than you
Mm-hmm.
possibly.
Mm-hmm.
I also think it can depend on the person. So
For sure.
like my kids, Layla, Kim, obviously they're just spoiled. You like if you ask me to
Oops.
do something,
Oops.
I'm prone to still do it even if I don't want to. I think as I got older, even if it were, these people that usually I buckle to just because of my love for them, um, it definitely was the whole in your head thing. And it is definitely more in your head. Like, even if the other person would be put off or like maybe have an attitude for a little while or something like that, usually those people are going to get over it way quicker than the anxiety that I would put myself in just thinking about like how they may feel if I say no.
Right.
And I like would literally just almost go into like um a panic attack
Mm-hmm.
thinking like, oh my gosh, this person, they're not gonna like talk to me for a little while, or and even if that is the case, like now that I'm older, it's kind of like, so what if that's the case, just because I don't personally want to do something that isn't necessarily, my responsibility or whatever, then so be it. Um, but and I'm definitely not even saying that still doesn't happen, because there's still definitely times where I'll give in even though I don't really want to do something, because I'd rather just not deal with
Mm-hmm.
the negative side of it. I also don't like confrontation a whole lot. So I feel like sometimes, and maybe you guys can relate to it, is that I think sometimes we allow people to cross their boundaries because we really have a bigger issue with confrontation.
That's true. And
Since,
the, I would say with or what I believe too is with boundaries, it's especially from what you kind of just shared too, it a lot of it goes to like we're people pleasers. We want to please, the other person, putting ourselves on the back burner. Our, our wants, our needs, our emotions, our feelings behind. Toxic, toxic. We're gonna work on that. Right, super toxic. And I think you had just mentioned of like, you just in the moment you don't want to deal with that negativity or whatever the case may be, but when this is a repetitive behavior, that negativity is actually just expanded out, right? It's like, so you're creating this long lifespan of actually negativity by not addressing it in the moment or setting that firm boundary. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Yeah. So let's talk about like maybe some personal boundaries, right? Oh, Kingdon!
It's
Hi,
supposed to be part of the
Kingdon.
podcast today.
Kingston, what boundary are you struggling with setting right now? Okay.
You don't
So,
respect my boundaries for needing time to myself to do things. Okay, you're gonna go with that, and mommy's gonna continue.
bye, Kingston. Kingston had the feature in there. He's been upset he hasn't hit you with the 1-2-1-2 in the first two episodes. as she mentioned, sometimes the children, it's a hard time with sticking and setting those boundaries, but something, they'll test it too, clearly. And that's all right. He gonna learn.
Goodness.
um yeah, so we were getting ready to talk about our current boundaries that we're struggling with.
Oh, I would say for me, the current. I feel like it's just the same one that like follows me. Like even though I'm better with it, it's like the whole just like saying no when I really don't want to.
Mm.
Um, um, yeah. I feel like that's it, and it like kind of ties into like at work. Like I have a say yes mentality. No matter what, you just say yes because that can open doors for you and all that other stuff. And for the most part, that definitely works out, and I have no
Right.
problem doing it. But sometimes I can get myself overwhelmed because actually, I won't even say with work. It's actually with personal friends more often than not. Work, I feel like I have a handle on that one. Um, but like overbooking, like every weekend having something to do, because I don't even have that many friends, but it's like you want to be able to spend time with all of them, and maybe it's not always all together, so now it's like feels like back to back to back. And for me, I would say I'm more of like an introverted person.
Mm.
I don't want to necessarily say I'm just straight up an introvert, because it kind of depends on the situation now in my life, but I definitely need, and I've been better with it, of setting the boundary of I need me time. I need to be able to take time to just totally be cut off from everyone, even the people that I live with, because I need to recharge by myself. And it's difficult if I know that's a boundary of mine or something that I need, but I'm disregarding my personal needs a lot of the time because I want still to have good relationships with, this person and that person. And time is so limited. We're all so busy and all this other stuff. So a million pros and cons to both situations where a lot of times I'll just chuck it up because I'm like, I don't want this person to like leave my life. But maybe if I was more vocal about the fact that it's not that I don't want to be around you, it's just I already am doing XYZ. Like maybe you don't even have to go into that much detail with that person. And if they're a good friend of yours, they should, or family member, whoever they are, they should be understanding as to what that is. And if they decide that nope, this friendship or relationship's not going to work out, then maybe you just saved yourself a lot more time than trying to struggle through it, like you said, like
Mm-hmm.
creating that longer lifespan of this like negative behavior, this negative headspace that even if you're the only one feeling it because everybody else is oblivious to it, um, it would stop if that person can't understand it once you're presenting it to them.
No doubt. Yeah, it's real interesting you say that too. So talking about work, I think I actually do a really good job in that aspect of it. I've always, and maybe it's the role that I have too as well. Actually, no, I just think it's my personality that I'm not a yes man. I view myself kind of like not a challenger, but I will question whether I agree or not, but it's one to challenge that person and what they're saying of, okay, are you confident in your stance of what you're saying needs to happen? And if so, you should be able to explain it. Or the other side of it is, I don't understand what you're saying and I need you to get into the grit. So, in that aspect, I think I do really well, but as far as saying no, to things, I think I can say no. For me, what I think I struggle with boundary wise, I was actually having a conversation the other day about this because it had me in my feelings. It had me in my feelings deep because I pride myself of being super honest, open and honest about everything, right? And in this moment, I was like, I could get real. I could get realer with people. And I think sometimes I'm being honest. I am being honest about how I feel, but I'm not presenting or communicating. I'm not communicating in a way that that person understands it. To me, it makes sense, right? I'm like, I told you I didn't want to do it this way, but I didn't follow that up with, okay, this is my proposed idea moving forward, right? I just left it. I kind of leave a lot of conversations, I think, open-ended
Mm-hmm.
for someone else to kind of fill in the gaps. And that is in your boundary building checklist is a no. You need to stop doing that of assuming that other people know,
Yeah,
right?
because they're filling in the blank to what they think.
Right.
Like,
Right.
oh, she
So I
didn't want
mean,
me to
we're
do it
expecting them to
this
read our mind,
particular way,
basically.
but what about I do this and that's still not exactly what you're
Right.
looking for.
Yeah. It was literally a get real moment for me. It really was,
Mhm.
where I was like, oh, wait. And then I felt even worse about it because I'm like, dang, have I been living this like false reality in life? I'm over there chalking it up like, yo, I'm honest, right? I'll give it to you real anytime. And then I'm
Mhm.
like, well, I have an opportunity, right? So that truthfully, and this has been, as you know, obviously our conversations, it's like, it's been, the last, I'd say couple of months for me, but really this last week or two, I've been really struggling with being firm on that boundary of, um, this isn't going to work, period. Right.
Mhm.
And I'm going to tell you why it's not going to work from my perspective and moving. And it goes back to being a people pleaser, right? Like, I don't want to be it's weird. I feel like in this moment I'm bipolar with it because I was about to say, I don't want you to feel some type of way, but also give a damn. It's for you to work through, okay? And I think you started with in the beginning of people that I don't want to say that get it because that's not the word that I'm looking for, but when you set these healthy boundaries, right? Yeah, maybe they might feel some type of way in the moment of like, damn. But at the end of they should be able to look at it and be like, okay, whether I agree or disagree with the statement or that boundary,
I
I
understand.
respect it. Yeah, I understand it. I respect it. Right. Um, and I think that but we go into it fearful that you might be, let's say, viewed this way, XYZ, or it might break up a relationship,
Right.
family, friends, anything like that. And then you're thinking that bigger picture down the road. And again, let's talk, like, let's say family. Let's say it is a family situation, right?
Yeah. It's
And
so
because,
hard because
yeah,
it's like you would never want to lose a family member in any type of aspect. Like you
right,
don't even have to go down the dark road of losing someone, but you wouldn't want to necessarily lose someone that's still here, that you're still able to talk to and everything like that because of like a conflict that you have.
right,
And it becomes that's what the fear is built behind. It's like that's what you're thinking about is like I'm going to lose this person if I say something about how I feel or how I'm interpreting what's going on, when that really shouldn't be the big picture. It should be like I
right.
want to be as clear um and I just blanked on what I was about to say. But basically I just want to be as clear as possible so it doesn't lead to that, because
Right.
I find in most cases, even if in the moment it gets heated or that person needs space for a little while, which will be an upcoming podcast topic about giving space. But if that's the case, let it,
Mm-hmm.
because in my personal experience, most times that person will be okay. They'll get over it, and then you guys will be that much stronger or um that much more able to just stick together and continue the relationship as it should continue. um because you really end up hurting yourself by not addressing it fully. um yeah, so I can't wait for us to like, I know that article, I checked that article out too, has also tips related to like how to set or maintain them.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we already talked about like really good things as far as like what are boundaries, what kind of do you need to know, but everything in my mind that's like spinning is like different things that I think I can do, will do to be able to get better with it, because honestly it is that like the bipolar, like you want to but
Right.
then you don't,
Right.
because it could end this way, but I should care about me. We always go back and forth about how forms of self-love like setting boundaries, so I would consider setting boundaries a part of self-love, right? Like, would you say
Yes,
that for
absolutely. That is one of
yeah.
the topics when you're in the class. Is you
Okay, so like it's like if there's so much preaching, especially in these days, about how important self-love is, but then there's also that whole other side that's like, oh, you're selfish and all this
Right.
other stuff. It's like it's so hard to find that middle ground and that balance, and sometimes you may flip-flop, like it may be a little seesaw, kind of go like sometimes you are going to allow people to cross certain boundaries, and maybe those particular boundaries aren't like your main core, like absolutely not, don't cross that sand
Right.
line. But there may be some that are, where you're like, if you do this, that's it, like I'm out, I'm all set, or there's some type of consequence attached to it. um so yeah.
Yeah, it's I don't know if this is a good way to go about it, but lately, for me, I've been like, okay, just trying to, again, because it's like it's family that I'm struggling, or family or close relationships. I don't want to just say family, but I know a lot of us struggle on the family side of it, right? Because we have history with these people. But the way that I've lately have been trying to go about it, I'm like, okay, what is the situation? What is the situation at first, right? And then I'm like, okay, if a stranger did this to me, how would I respond? And then people probably like, that's why I'm not a stranger. I'm like, it doesn't matter. Again, with setting clear, healthy boundaries, it doesn't matter whether you are someone off of the street or we've been riding dirty in diapers since day one. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter. I should still be able to respond and react the same exact way with my boundary, right? So that honestly, lately I'm like, okay, or not lately, I'm trying to, of processing, getting my words right, my thoughts together, um, and not being fearful. Um, Easier said than done for sure.
Mhm.
Um, and actually with both work and life, um, I every single day I've been actually waking up and throughout the day with those moments where I'm like, like really stressed or overwhelmed, I keep telling myself, okay, Jess, let go. Literally that quote, let go of the things I can't control.
Mhm.
And because I really have been so laser focused on those external things that I literally have no control over. And that's been banging me up with my boundaries. I'm like,
Mhm.
girl, why are you tripping so much? Like, listen, if it is a person, or a situation, let's say it's a person, sometimes you have to end those toxic relationships. And I firmly believe if it's meant to be, it will circle back.
Mhm.
I've attested many testimonies, but one in particular, where it did circle back, and it was years later, but that space, that was given between us was absolutely necessary. And not
Mhm.
that it's perfect now. The relationship definitely, like our relationship will never be the same ever again. I have to accept that. They have to accept that. And we are moving in a, I believe, a healthier direction
Mhm.
because we were able to take that space and set our own kind of boundaries with it, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so
All
yeah,
right.
those
So
I
you're
think,
saying you're like, so sounds like I heard three. So let me know
yeah,
if I'm getting this
yep,
right. So you say to be able to set in or maintain certain boundaries, you need to be clear about
yep,
what those boundaries are. You need to let go of like your emotions attached to it. Because, like, yes, your emotions are going to be involved in why the boundary even needs to be set to begin with, but you need to let go of the emotions surrounding it. Um, and then there was one in the middle.
the ending the relationship, the toxic relationships if
Oh,
needed.
and okay, so part of setting or maintaining is and knowing when to get out, basically.
Right.
Okay. Okay. He's back.
Kingston, you agree?
I would say as far as me, like I definitely agree with being clear, so that would definitely be my top one. Um, but to add and expand on that, be clear with also the impact for what the person like for whoever crosses that boundary.
Yup.
Because I think part of being honest with yourself, but being honest with that person is they kind of not always like I definitely think there's like those one-offs where this is my boundary. I don't need to explain to you why this is my boundary. But in most instances, like I'm kind of thinking like mostly after like kid wise, because kids also deserve explanation. There's
Yep.
going to be,
I
and
agree.
let us know if you agree with me because I know there's plenty of people that don't agree with that. Like kids, um, as he comes back,
Yeah.
um, yeah, buddy.
Oh, he about to cry. Get all of that.
I don't know. BRB.
No worries. Um, while she handles the Kingston for the moment, he loves seeing his auntie on the camera. That's why, we have a moment. Um, Another thing. Okay, welcome. Well,
I'm back. I'm back. Sorry, y'all. This is a real podcast about my
right.
life.
Kiki, real. We
So,
can real.
but yeah, okay. So being clear about the impact, like I said, I believe kids also need explanation, even though it can be very difficult because we just have this mindset like I'm the adult, like you're the
Okay.
child, almost like you're beneath me kind of thing, which that is maybe a whole nother topic too. But I think that the impact of allowing them to know what is that boundary and what is the impact to you.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I agree. You need to let your emotions out of it when you're creating the boundary, so it can be as realistic and logical to be
Yep.
able to explain, but tie back in your emotion because a lot of times people feel that, can understand when they know how the feeling, and then they also need to know what that consequence is.
Yep. Yep. I couldn't
Like
agree more.
be clear about the impact and the consequence. So maybe, hopefully, that is the fodder for them to be like, all right, well, I don't want to make them feel this way. And I definitely
Mm-hmm.
don't want this consequence. I don't want to lose them in my life. I don't want to, have to be limited to how many times I can see that, like, whatever the case may be. Like, if that's all laid out on the line, I feel like you'll run a better track of people being able to respect it because it's not just that age old because I said so. Everybody hates that, and everybody, I know I used, no, I won't even say it all the time because I was kind of like a goody two shoes, whatever. But kids and stuff, like a lot of times, if you're just saying because I said so, there's going to be a chance, even if they listen 99% of the time, there's going to be a chance where they're like, I'm not taking that as the answer, and
Right.
I'm going to do it because you're not giving me enough reason as to why
Mm-hmm.
not. So
Right.
so definitely that, being clear with the impact and the consequence. I would also say it's probably a good idea too to have someone else like me and you, Jazz, like that you can talk to about the things
Right.
that are bothering you. Because I feel like what we run into in our conversations, and you obviously hear it from me, is you will spill out how you feel down to how it impacts you, down to like how you feel the consequence would turn out to be. And I'll be like, so did you tell this
Did you
person
say
that?
that? Right. Right.
Did you say it exactly the way that you said it to me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh no. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it it's good for you to have someone to be able to get all that out with, but at the same time that person can like almost be your accountability person to be like, all right, well, I totally understand that, and I, either I'm on board with how you feel, or maybe I don't necessarily see it that way, and I can also be devil's advocate for you. But also, this person that you're having this issue with needs to know
Right.
exactly the way you told it to me, because that's what they're missing out with. That's why they keep crossing that boundary, is because they're missing this real part.
Right.
Um,
I
so
just
yeah.
before you even move on from, I just want to hone in on that, like of what you just said of having someone to be able to talk it through. Um, and maybe we call these your get real mentors, okay?
That's good.
Because you do need you the devil's advocate piece is so important, right? It's not someone that's going to continue to tell you what you want to hear, but also, hey, I'm here to let you get this all out. Boom. Okay, word. Like you said, did you say that? Okay, no, why? Okay. Are you uncomfortable in some kind of way? Okay, that's another topic that we can dig into and dive into. But reality is, if you're feeling all of this, you're able to process it through, and being able to speak it out helps you being able to like condense your thoughts, still get
Yeah,
the message
because
across.
maybe you're overwhelmed with feeling, and you
Yeah.
haven't been able to put into words what you're feeling. That other person can be like, all right, you know, you said this is, or maybe you said how you're feeling, or like what the thing is. Okay, why is that? And it
Right.
makes you take a pause. Okay, so why do I feel like this? And then that becomes your impact. Like,
Yep.
I feel this way because,
Right.
and then, okay, that other person then can start diving into, all right, now that you know why you feel this way when this person does this to you, what would be the worst case scenario? What would be the worst thing to happen if this continues?
Right. Agreed. Agreed. And
Yeah.
I think I want to leave leave myself with. I want to leave with anyone watching this. All y'all, yeah. Understand and know with your boundaries. It will always be an adjustment period for you, right? Because you were so used to something before, and when you can acknowledge, okay, I need to set these healthy boundaries. This is an adjustment. You're going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be a shift, but long term, you're going to be so happy you did, right? And for many reasons, but also understand and know you do not owe anyone an apology because you're setting a boundary.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You don't need to be sorry. Sorry for what? Sorry that you're choosing you. Sorry that you're choosing peace and happiness. Choosing to have this fulfilled lifestyle. You know,
Mm-hmm.
what you sorry about? Okay. And I needed to, again, I'm going to rewatch this myself. Because I needed to hear that. I needed to vocalize that to know like, it's okay. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay. And my limits, what's important to me, what's crucial in my life, like Shanice, you had mentioned, it might not be the same for someone else, right? It's why, like, I might need folks to come correct. No, just kidding. I was going to go in a whole different direction, but you know what I'm saying? Like at the end of the day, my boundary's not going to be the same as someone else's, and that's just fine. We live totally different lifestyles, and like I said, you don't have to apologize. I don't need to say sorry for
Mhm.
setting this. I'm not sorry. I'm actually not.
Yeah. I love that too because yeah, like even though I feel like initially most of us are definitely gonna be in our feels and be like,
Mhm.
oh, I feel terrible, blah blah blah, whatever. But you definitely shouldn't be apologizing. And I think what also can help, so kind of like my last tip, I guess, would be if you're struggling very hard and maybe communication isn't your forte anyway, write it down. I like to write down everything, especially my feelings, because it helps me process.
No
Because
doubt.
it's crazy up in this brain. It's
Right.
really, it just everything goes on, and it's yeah. So writing it down because you can literally even maybe create lists like what would be my hardcore boundaries, like the
Right.
ones that are absolutely non-negotiables. Then
Hmm.
maybe there's another list for ones that, all right, I can compromise on these, especially if we're talking about relationships as far as a romantic partner or anything like that. There's always going to be compromises.
No
There's going to
doubt.
be things that before you got into that relationship, um, non-negotiable. I don't care who you are, all this other stuff. But then when you introduce a romantic partner in your life, that's not necessarily going to be the same person as you. Yes, you want similarities, you want to be able to be compatible, but just because you think differently or have different boundaries does not mean you're not compatible. It just means maybe you need to loosen some of the restraints on certain boundaries, make it
Mm-hmm.
clear what the non-negotiables still are, and if there are any that, you know, you're not going to be too upset it's not make or break, still let them know that it's there, because then they know, hey, if I run into this, or if I normally would have acted a certain way, maybe not 100% of the time, but they're going to do it a different way.
Right.
So,
Absolutely. Boom.
yes,
Drop
ma'am.
the gems on you. Okay. Um, y'all, we are this topic itself, we can do a part two, part 3.4. We want to hear from you, of course. So get into the comments, like, subscribe, share, right? We are here to talk all of this through with one another to grow together. And we know boundaries is a beast in itself,
Yeah, I
right?
feel like we just hit like tip of the iceberg. So if you do want more about boundaries, definitely let us know. It might not necessarily be the next topic, but we can definitely
Right.
circle back to this.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
but definitely be on the lookout next Wednesday. I know we're a week behind, guys, but we're still plugging along. So next week there will be the what's the word coming to you by Jazz over here, or maybe I don't know. I can't remember.
Right. Whichever way you see me.
Um, and just to reinforce, figure out ways that we all can be better at setting boundaries, because these are going to be continual probably to the day that we die, setting new boundaries and readjusting. And then we will go live towards the end of the month. We'll remind you. So if you want to make sure you get those reminders automatically, that's where that subscribe button comes into play. So hit it, come get
No
real with
doubt.
us again. It's great talking to you, girl, as always.
As always, I appreciate you. I appreciate y'all. And we'll talk next week. All
All right.
right. Peace and hair grease.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.